Hello and welcome back to FATBOSS TV. Today we're looking at the third boss in Ny'alotha with Prophet Skitra.
So the explanation of this boss won't be all that long, as there is only 2 phases and it has very few mechanics to explain. However, there is a new mechanic that we haven't seen in the raid before, so that's always fun. Anyway, let's jump in with phase 1.
Now the boss will hit the tanks frequently with Shadow Shock. This deals a burst of shadow damage and applies a debuff that increases the shadow damage you take by 15% for 5 seconds. It's also noted in the dungeon journal to also hit 2 other random targets, which it was whilst we was testing, but only applying the debuff to the tank. Now whilst you could taunt on 2 every single time, it's likely that the boss would go taunt immune, so you'll likely want to swap every 3 to 4 stacks. Now as for the raid, you'll want to watch out for when someone is debuffed with Shred Psyche. When this 5-second debuff expires, an ad will spawn on top of that player's location. This player needs to make sure they move away from the raid before the ad spawns, because the moment it does, it will stand completely still and cast Psychic Outburst, which does a huge amount of damage to the raid, which falls off of distance. After this outburst, you want everyone to swap to it and kill it off as soon as possible, as it is spam casting Psychic Reverberations, dealing far lighter raid-wide ticking damage. The only other mechanic in this phase is the Images of Absolution. These ads spawn on one side of the room and then will begin to slowly move across to the other side. Any players that stand too close to these ads are more or less one-shot. Fortunately, the ads can be crowd controlled, so you can make gaps in the walls by knocking ads away or using things like roots and grips. After these ads have been active for 30 seconds, they will no longer be immune to damage and they can just be killed off instantly, as they only have 1 health. Now once you get the boss to 80% health, phase 2 will begin for the first time.
At this point, the boss will disappear and various illusions will spawn throughout the room. The raid is also put into 2 different phases: Clouded Mind, or red, or Twisted Mind, which we call blue, based off the colours of the debuff icons. These phases are exactly the same, except the illusions in each phases are in different places, aside from one of them that's identical in both realms. Your raid needs to identify which one is in the same location and kill it off. Killing off the wrong one will cause your raid to take a huge burst of damage, probably wiping you. We decided the best way to do it was have someone in one of the teams, say the red team, place world markers on top of the illusions within the room, and then have one of the members of the blue team announce the moment a world marker appears on top of one of their particular ads, and then that is the ad that needs to be killed in order to end the phase. It's important this phase is done quickly because people are getting hit by illusionary bolts every 2 seconds, which deals shadow damage, and on top of that you're also gaining dark ritual stacks, which increases the shadow damage you take. But once you have killed the correct illusionist, phase 1 will begin and the fight repeats from there, with your next phase 2 coming every 20%. As for Mythic, you're put into your different phases, so your red team and your blue team, from the very start of the fight, meaning that you only have half the DPS available on the Shred Psyche ad than you normally would on Heroic, and also the ads that cross the room are also within their own realm, but the damage from both of these abilities crosses over, meaning you could be safe from the roaming ads in your own phase, but the ads from the opposite phase might be walking directly towards you and you have no idea about it aside from people yelling at you over comms from the other phase. Also, to add the dark ritual stacks that you gain from phase 2, they do not reset as you enter phase 1, so towards the end of the fight, the amount of damage that you're going to be taking inside that room from all the illusionary bolts is going to be absolutely insane. But that's the fight, so to conclude the video, what do we think?
So it's always a little bit scary when you first look in the dungeon journal coming up to a fight and you barely even need to scroll to look at all the abilities, but when you have one big impact mechanic like the illusions, I think it actually works pretty well. We should touch on how it's probably quite likely that there is a weak aura or some sort of add-on being developed to counter this ability entirely, but to be honest, I really hope that there isn't one. The world marker strategy that we were using really wasn't all that slow, and the thing is, if you just completely remove that whole aspect of having to talk to one another from this fight, it would be the biggest pile of shit. Like, there'd be absolutely nothing to do. You'd be sat in phase 1, one side of the boss, drop the ads off, kill off the ads, and then just go to the thing that's marked in phase 2.
Yeah.
It's going to be super, super dull. So I really hope that Blizzard has somehow managed to make it so this is secure and can't be cheesed with an add-on.
You just touched on a point I think probably could be made here as well. For phase 1, there isn't a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
There's definitely an argument to be made that perhaps something could be added, some mechanic that maybe forces you to use the entire room rather than just stack up on a single point. Because the images don't really do anything. You CC 3 of them, the rest of them just pass you, and eventually the immunity drops, you press Halo or something, and they all just instantly die.
Yeah, like mass roots here is insane.
Yeah.
Like, it just completely counts as a mechanic. I'm with you 100%, but you could argue that, you know, it is only third in the instance. Maybe, like, the hard part of the fight is, can we get people to talk? And then the downtime between it, everyone can kind of chill out, like, oh god, talking on TeamSpeak was spooky. You know, I need that 20% boss health just so I can chill out and then get ready to speak again. You know, maybe something along those lines. So, you know, it's early enough, it's kind of a cool enough mechanic, and you're kind of paying a tax doing phase 1 right now, but yeah, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I can see that. Thanks for watching, guys. To keep up to date with the changes made to this boss and be ready to kill it the moment it hits live servers, then do check out our guide over on Wowhead. A link for that can be found in the description. And we shall see you all in the next preview.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.